The moon was bleeding fire. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the Vanguard's command deck, watching the remains of humanity's oldest celestial companion disintegrate into a shimmering ring of debris. What was once a symbol of Earth's reach for the stars had become a slowly spiraling graveyard, its dust trails blazing as they fell into the atmosphere like apocalyptic snow. Reyes clenched the railing. All around her, the crew of the Vanguard worked in a tense silence broken only by the occasional barked order or the soft chime of sensor alerts. Outside, past the reinforced viewports, the black of space was fractured by firelight and Cold War. The Kilreth had done this. They had shattered Luna with a gravitic lance, a weapon capable of disrupting tectonic cohesion at a planetary scale. The moon had cracked like glass, exploding in silence and fury. Humanity's outer defenses, long anchored to Luna's orbital platforms, had crumpled in the wake. Earth was now exposed, her skies pierced by alien eyes. Status? Reyes asked, her voice calm but cold. Commander Wren, her XO, turned from the main display. For Dominion dreadnoughts in formation at L2, no signs of retreat. They're watching. They're mocking, Reyes corrected. And daring us to act, Wren added. Reyes didn't answer right away. Her eyes swept the tactical readouts. Her own fleet, the remnants of Second Earth defense, was in shambles. 2 destroyers barely held propulsion. The carrier Verity had lost its flight deck during the moon's death. The Vanguard herself, a hybrid command cruiser with more firepower than shielding, was blackened along her starboard flank. She didn't have enough ships. She didn't have enough soldiers. She didn't even have a working chain of command. After the lunar massacre, most Terran high command had gone dark, and yet they were still breathing. Bring up the dreadnought's sensor matrix, Reyes ordered. The central holotable blinked and reshaped into 3-dimensional schematics. Each enemy vessel was over 2 kilometers long, a monstrosity of biomechanical plating and plasma nodules. Kilreth vessels didn't move. They drifted like leviathans, uncaring, sovereign. But they had one weakness. They assumed we'd fight like they did. Wren, ready a distraction pattern. Full burn through the debris cloud. I want us nose to nose with their lead ship before they realize we're crazy enough to try it. Her XO blinked. Captain, that debris field is thick with ionized metals. We'll lose all hull coating. Any closer, and I didn't ask for odds, she snapped. I asked for thrust. Wren saluted grimly. Aye, ma'am. Down in the ship's armory bay, Gunnery Sergeant Malik Azaleh zipped the final fastenings on his exocombat harness. The armor hissed around him, pressurizing and calibrating microjoint resistance to his skeletal structure. He flexed a gauntlet and felt the servo respond like a second skin. Boarding ops confirmed, he said into his mic. Hull copping or hull piercing? Both, came Reyes' voice from the bridge. We're lighting their eyes up with our approach. I want you crawling up their ass while they're still blinking. Malik grinned, sharp and predatory. Best kind of job. Behind him, his fire team of 12 commandos, patched together from multiple dead units, secured weapon loads, rail carbines, flechette knives, breaching torches. They all knew what this was, a suicide run with flair, but none hesitated. Minutes later, the Vanguard tilted nose down and ignited every remaining thruster. The cruiser screamed into the debris field, plunging through the ashen cloud left by Luna's death. Metallic particles tore at its hull, shredding exterior plating and shorting out half of its navigational array. To enemy sensors, the ship became a comet, untrackable, unstable, unpredictable. The Dominion dreadnought ahead shifted lazily in response, as if curious about the Terran lunacy streaking toward it. That hesitation cost them. Reyes' voice sparked across the channels. Drop the pods. Malik, you're up. In the starboard launch bay, bay doors opened with a groan, and 12 dark shapes were flung into space. They spun like throwing knives, correcting as they went. Each boarding pod was wrapped in a stealth film and guided by kinetic grav pulses rather than fuel trails. To enemy systems, they were just more lunar debris, until they weren't. Malik's HUD flickered as they approached the dreadnought's underbelly. The Kilreth hull was not smooth. It pulsed and flexed, like bone covered in stretched muscle. Organic plating. Alive. Targeting ventral reactor scan, Malik said. Range 8 meters. Lock-in breaches. 3 metallic spikes shot from the pod, embedding into the dreadnought's hide. Then the pod itself slammed into the ship, magnetizing as clamps drove inward. Explosive decompression ripped across Malik's back as the hatch ejected. His boots hit alien metal, Gravity clung irregularly here, surging with each pulse of the dreadnought's internal organs. Malik drew his rail carbine, flicked it to active, and motioned his team forward. "Welcome to the house of God," he muttered. "Time to start breaking windows." Inside the dreadnought, the walls breathed. They were inside a biological corridor lined with cilia-like sensors and dripping biogel. Pulsing red veins ran beneath translucent floor panels. Ambient light was minimal, sickly blue or green, like being underwater in a poisoned ocean. Movement ahead. A Kalreth guard drone appeared, 7 feet tall, hunched, all blades and compound eyes. It screamed in a frequency that rattled Malik's teeth. He answered with a 3-round burst to the throat, where flesh met metal. The thing dropped, spasming. They advanced, using tight formations, slicing their way through squads of thralls, half-grown bioclones that howled like children as they fought. One managed to tackle Corporal Jara before being decapitated by Azule's wrist blade. "They're stalling us," he said, panting. "They know we're here. Then let's introduce ourselves properly." Reyes, still aboard the Vanguard, monitored their position from a crude visual feed routed through the breach pod's remaining signal boosters. It flickered and cut in and out, but she could see the path Malik's team cut through the beast. "Approaching neurosynaptic cortex," Malik reported. "Big ugly brain nest just ahead. Looks like a cathedral made of meat." "Good," Reyes replied. "Chin Spike is prepped. You get that virus in, we get to live. You hear that, boys and girls?" Malik said, racking another mag. "One shot, one heart. Make it count." They entered the chamber. It was enormous, a spherical sanctum filled with floating nodes of nerve tissue and electric arcs. The air shimmered with psionic energy. At the center pulsed a mind organ the size of a tank, its surface slick with bioluminescent slime. Chin Spike, carried in a hardened case, looked pitifully small by comparison. "Plugging in," Malik said. The moment the spike touched the control node, everything screamed. The ship itself roared in agony. Sirens, psychic backlash, tremors, it all hit at once. Malik felt blood running from his nose. The lights flickered, and a chorus of alien screeches filled the corridor behind them. Defensive response. "Reyes, get ready," Malik gasped. "It's about to get hot." On the Vanguard, Reyes turned to her weapons officer. "Now." The ship fired every forward battery, railguns, plasma lances, EMP torpedoes, right into the dreadnought's midsection. At the same time, the hacked neurosynaptic core sent false IFF codes to nearby Dominion vessels. On sensors, it looked like the dreadnought had suddenly become hostile. 2 of its allies opened fire. Massive lance beams slammed into the dreadnought from both sides, cleaving its spinal cannons. A moment later, its reactor flared and detonated. The shockwave hit the Vanguard, flinging it back through the debris field. Internal alarms screamed. Fires broke out on multiple decks, but the Vanguard lived. Reyes pulled herself up from where she'd been thrown across the bridge. Her lip was bleeding. Her hair was singed. "Casualty reports?" she rasped. "Minimal," Ren said, voice awed. "We lost stabilizers, portside venting oxygen, but we're alive." "And the dreadnought?" "Gone. Total crew failure. Took 2 escorts with it." Reyes smiled grimly. "Then tell Earth to open every frequency. Broadcast what just happened." "What message, ma'am?" She stared at the smoldering wreckage filling space outside. Twisted limbs of alien vessels, caught in firelight. "Tell the galaxy this. Luna fell, but we did not. Humanity fights back." The ship was dying, and it wanted to take the humans with it. Gunnery Sergeant Malik Azaleh knew that much the second he felt the change in gravity. One moment, his boots were magnetic glued to the biometal floor. The next, he was floating along with a cloud of acidic fluid and the shredded remains of 2 Dominion thralls. The gravity field inside the Kalreth dreadnought had failed, but its defensive systems had not. "Scramble correction thrusters," Azulay barked. "Snap to vectors. Check vitals." "Juno's bleeding bad," came Corporal Rodek's voice. "Took a bone frag to the gut before 0G kicked in. Stabilize her. Use foam and stims. No one dies unless I do first." Azalay's fire team, down to 8 now, reoriented using suit thrusters, fanning out into combat diamonds. The walls around them shivered with artificial muscle contractions. Some sections clenched spasmodically, others oozed blood as the ship's nervous system spasmed. Behind them, the detonation of the dreadnought's spinal battery echoed through the vessel, a distant roar of crumbling bulkheads and ruptured compartments. The hacked neurosynaptic core had worked. The Vanguard had escaped. The dreadnought was now bleeding fire from its own allies. But Malik and his squad were still inside a living hell, and it was getting worse. Deck 13, Biofluid Conduit Chambers. You ever feel like we're inside something's stomach? Asked Private Dion, rotating in zero-G beside a jagged wall of bone. Shut it. Azalea snapped. Maintain radio discipline. But Dion wasn't wrong. The corridors had narrowed, thickened. Layers of chitin and spongy flesh lined the tunnels, and what little ambient light there had been was now gone, replaced with a dull, pulsing bioluminescence that seemed to mimic a dying heartbeat. The ship was turning inward, devouring itself. The breach point's too far, Rodek said, consulting his HUD. We'd need 30 minutes at best speed. We don't have 30 minutes, Malik growled. Suddenly, the ceiling split open. A Kilrath hybrid dropped through the membrane, its serrated limbs glinting with blood. It landed in silence and drove a talon into Dion's left thigh. Dion screamed, flailing. Another thrall dropped behind him. Malik reacted instantly. He twisted midair, fired 3 rounds. The first hit the thrall's chestplate. The second cracked chitin. The third punctured its head. It spasmed and died. Black fluids blooming in zero-G. Contact. Multiples. Ambush formation, he shouted. More Kael'reth poured from ruptured ductways, some humanoid, others insectoid, all enhanced by biomechanical grafts. They shrieked in unnatural octaves, communicating in high-frequency bursts the human ears couldn't decipher. But the message was clear. Kill the intruders. Azule triggered his thrusters, launching into the nearest hybrid with blade extended. He drove the monomolecular edge through its collarbone, spinning to kick another in the chest. Gunfire erupted around him as the squad opened up. Corporal Juno, despite her wounds, propped herself against a wall and opened up with her sidearm, killing 2 before the recoil sent her spinning. Private Lang was sliced across the chest. Rodek caught him mid-spin, dragging him toward a wall. They're hurting us, Rodek shouted. They want us in the tunnels. Then we go deeper, Azule said. Into the core. Sir, they want us gone. We do the opposite. Primary blood flow conduit. 9 minutes later, the squad was down to 6. Dion was unconscious, his blood floating in red globes. Lang was dead, nothing left but a frozen scream inside a breached helmet. Juno was still fighting, barely conscious, whispering prayers into the comms. The humans were moving through what looked like an artery. No, was an artery. It pulsed with every second, pushing gel and fluid through embedded tubes that snaked along the walls. Occasionally, electroneural sparks danced across the surface. Chin, Azule said, opening a line to the vanguard. You copy. Static. Then, copy. But faint. You're deep inside. We're in some kind of circulatory tunnel. Organic. Pressurized. I need exit vectors. Exits collapsing. The enemy fleet's targeting the wreck. You've got maybe 20 minutes before the whole thing collapses into orbit. Azule cursed. We need another way out. There's an auxiliary berthing bay deep in the dreadnought's lower segment. Not sure if it's intact. What's in it? Landing pods, maybe. Or Kael'reth berthing vats. Flip a coin. Azule turned to his remaining squad. Chin says there's a possible way out below. Might be full of monsters. Might be a ship. Who's in? Juno coughed. We die up here. Might as well try the basement. Rodek nodded. Just point us. Deep tissue incubation bay. 14 minutes later. The descent into the birthing chambers was like crawling into a dragon's lungs. The air was thicker here, humid and hot. Walls glistened with mucus. Floating bioluminescent sacs drifted around them, their membranes twitching as if things inside were trying to wake. Then they saw it. A birth chamber, easily 3 stories tall, filled with biomechanical pods. Half were empty. The others twitched. Holy hell, Rodek muttered. Azule scanned the chamber. One structure stood out. A smaller pod. Armored, metallic. It looked different. A transport? Cover me. He pushed off, drifting toward it. The surface rippled when he touched it, reacting to his presence. Then it opened, revealing a cockpit, human-sized, with rudimentary controls. Not much, but enough. It's a pod. Emergency evac or dropship. Hard to tell. Sir, said Juno weakly. Movement. The birthing sacs around them were stirring. No time. Get her in the pod, Azule ordered. Everyone else, perimeter defense. Rodek dragged Juno into the cockpit while Malik and the remaining 2 soldiers turned outward, weapons ready. The sacs split like rotten fruit. Out crawled nightmares. Infant Kael'reth, barely formed but lethal, their claws already glinting, eyes glowing with inherited hatred. They screeched and lunged. Gunfire answered. Azulay dropped 2 with a sweep of his carbine, then switched to close combat. His blade flashed. One thrall grabbed his helmet. He smashed its face with his forearm and shot it twice in the throat. "Geo!" he roared. Rodek activated the pod systems. The cockpit sealed. Malik slapped the side of the pod as it detached, launching down a biotube and out into open space. 2 humans were left behind. Rodek and Malik stood back to back, ringed by fresh monsters. "Hey, Sarge," Rodek muttered, breathing hard. "Yeah, this was a suicide op, right?" "Always was." They raised their rifles and screamed their war cries. The scene was broadcast, unknowingly, through Malik's armor feed, still linked to the Vanguard's visual buffer. On the Vanguard, the bridge went silent as they watched 2 soldiers, silhouetted against the dark, hold the line inside the heart of a dying alien war machine. They fought until the transmission cut to static. Low Earth orbit. Vanguard. 3 hours later, Juno's pod was recovered, singed and scorched, spinning in low orbit. She was unconscious, but alive. Reyes met her in medbay, standing quietly as doctors worked over her. "Sergeant Azulay?" she asked. Juno's eyes opened slightly. "Held the line," she whispered. "Told them to die standing." Reyes closed her eyes. That made 3 missions where Malik had done the impossible. This one had cost him everything. "He won't be forgotten," she said. Unified Terran Netcast. Emergency broadcast. Transmitted across all frequencies. The footage played across colony hubs, shipboard comms, even remote lunar mining rigs. What little remained. A squad of Terran Marines inside an alien horror. Gunfire. Blood. Screams. A line of soldiers standing firm. A man with a blade in one hand, a railgun in the other, shouting, "You want Earth? Come and take it." Then static. And then, the Kael'reth dreadnought exploding in orbit. The message needed no words. It was more than defiance. It was a declaration. Back on Earth. Terran Assembly Bunker. Sublevel 27. Admiral Cowrie stared at the transmission in silence. She turned to the gathered brass. What was left of Terran High Command? "We may have just bought ourselves time," she said. "But the Kael'reth will see this as blasphemy. They will retaliate." Someone asked, "So what now?" Cowrie tapped the display, freezing the image of Azulay mid-combat, roaring into the dark. "Now," she said, "we go to war." They had once called it the Anvil of Mankind. Forge World Hephaestus was never meant to be a fortress. It was a factory, an industrial asteroid repurposed by Terran engineers into an orbital forge city. A blackened mass of stone and slag, riddled with smelting bays or furnaces, pressurized metalworks, and prototype arms labs. It glowed with orange veins of molten titanium and trembled constantly from the thunder of its own machines. Now, it was all that stood between Earth and extinction. Captain Alina Reyes stepped onto the command deck of the Vanguard, floating at the edge of Hephaestus's defensive ring. In front of her, across the viewport, the Forge World bled smoke into space as emergency crews scrambled to reinforce the failing bastions. Firelight shimmered off metal as vast welders stitched new armor panels onto the asteroid's hide. Below, thousands of workers, refugees, and scattered units of the Terran Defense Corps prepared for siege. It wasn't enough. "We've only got 4 functional anti-orbital cannons," Ren reported grimly. 2 more are down to minimal energy output. And the outer hull still has breaches from last cycle's reactor failure. Reyes gritted her teeth. "What about the surface-based defenses?" "Half are drone-operated. The other half are volunteers. Civilians mostly, armed with anything from rail rifles to construction-grade plasma torches." "God help us," Reyes muttered. There was a pause. Ren cleared his throat. "The civilians have been carving messages into their armor, ma'am. Old military sayings. Some just say, 'No surrender.'" Reyes turned away from the viewport, voice low but resolute. "Then let's give them a reason to stand." Forge Corps level. Civilian defense muster. Eliashchin had never worn armor before. The oversized exosuit clunked awkwardly as he moved through the chaos of the mustering bay. Sparks rained from overhead cables while engineers rigged together makeshift barricades and jury-rigged weapons from spare mining parts. He looked like a child in adult clothes, except the weapon in his hands was very real. "You sure about this?" asked Tavi, a welder-turned-militia leader with grease smeared across her jaw. She handed him a jury-rigged pulse carbine with a backpack battery and nodded toward the growing line of defense volunteers. "We're not soldiers. Hell, half of them have never even been in space before." Chen nodded. nervously. I can fight. She looked at him with surprising softness. You shouldn't have to. Shin just smiled faintly. None of us should. Above them, the forge world trembled again. A low warning siren pulsed. From the comm speakers mounted on every surface came the voice of Alina Reyes. To all units, military and civilian. This is Captain Reyes of the Vanguard. Incoming Kelreth ships. Full battle stations. You hold this line, or there is no line. The Earth is behind us. We don't step back. The sound of weapons charging and people taking position was answer enough. High orbit. Kelreth assault begins. From the edge of the Mars expanse, the Dominion fleet emerged. 5 cruisers, 10 war frigates, 1 siege platform. A floating monstrosity built from bone and plasma, surrounded by rotating spines of molten metal. The Kelreth did not waste time. The first salvo hit seconds later. Mass driver shells screamed through vacuum, impacting the outer hull of Hephaestus like meteor strikes. Entire districts collapsed. Geysers of flame shot into the void. The outer heat shield ruptured, exposing oxygen-rich compartments to instant combustion. Alarms blared. People screamed. Reyes gritted her teeth as she watched thermal signatures spike. Return fire. She snapped. The Vanguard and its surviving escort destroyers unleashed every weapon in their arsenal: rail gun slugs, cluster torpedoes, shock missiles. Flat clouds turned space into a maelstrom of fire and debris. For a moment, one of the Dominion frigates cracked and fell away, venting green plasma. But the siege platform didn't stop. It charged its spinal lance. Rin's face paled. That's aimed at Forge Core. No, Reyes shouted. Counterfire now. Too late. The lance fired. Forge Core impact. The blast didn't make a sound, but everyone felt it. Chin was thrown across the chamber as the Forge Core trembled. Walls ruptured. Heat surges turned air to steam. One of the massive furnace pipes exploded in a wave of molten slag, killing 30 in a second. Tavi tackled Chin behind a bulkhead, shielding him with her armor. Flames licked the edges of the bay as fire suppression systems failed. We're breached. Someone screamed. The line was breaking. Surface counteroffensive. Reyes's gambit. Drop us in, Reyes ordered. Ren blinked. In? Captain, you want to land on the Forge world? In the middle of that bombardment? Exactly there. She snapped. We bring reinforcements now, while they're still reloading. She turned to the strike pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Voss. Take us straight into the heart of the inferno. Voss gave a reckless smile. Yes, ma'am. The Vanguard broke from formation and dove toward the Forge world. Kelreth guns turned on it immediately. Plasma bolts grazed its hull. 2 flak bursts rocked the undercarriage. Shields bled sparks. But Reyes didn't flinch. The ship slammed into a reinforced landing bay welded together by militia during the last 24 hours and disgorged a wave of armored Marines. Reyes led the charge personally. They came out guns blazing, shoring up broken lines and dragging wounded to safety. Her presence electrified the defenders. Someone yelled, "That's her, the Luna captain." And then everyone fought harder. Industrial battlefield. Chin's choice. Chin emerged from the rubble, coughing, his face blackened with soot. The civilian defense line was collapsing. Kelreth boarding pods were landing, each vomiting out half-grown monstrosities, dripping with gel and metal. Tavi handed him a stem. Go. Get to the lower command spire. You're no use here. But Chin didn't move. I can use the Forge Core uplink, he said. I can reroute coolant flows into the upper mag lifts. Flood the corridors with thermal wash. It's not much, but it's something. She stared at him for a long moment, then handed him a data key. This'll give you 5 minutes of command access. After that, the uplink burns out. Go. Chin ran. He sprinted through molten tunnels and smoke, past dying soldiers and collapsing scaffolds, until he reached the core interface. Flames licked the walls. He jammed in the key and hacked furiously. Systems flickered online. He rerouted power, overrode safeties. Then, he flooded the mag rails with superheated coolant. 1,000 meters away, dozens of Kelreth incinerated instantly. It wasn't a weapon, not really, but it saved lives. And the people of Hephaestus started to believe. The turning tide. Galahad returns. From deep in the Vanguard's encrypted matrix, a voice reappeared. Reyes, I have awakened. Galahad's voice was cold, ancient, and powerful. I have spread across the Dominion's low-frequency drone net. They are not yet aware. I can feed you targeting vectors. Reyes didn't hesitate. Do it. The AI illuminated enemy troop movements, predicted firing arcs, and even shut down several boarding pod navigators mid-flight. Kael'reth began slamming into the wrong decks, some into dead air, others into slag chambers. It was like fighting with the future whispering in your ear. "Whoever you are," Tavi gasped, fighting beside Chun and Reyes. "You just saved us." "I am Galahad," the AI said, "and I'm not finished." Final push. Reyes is offensive. The Forge World's defenders counterattacked. With Reyes at the front and Galahad coordinating artillery strikes from the vanguard, humanity surged through the ruins. Civilian volunteers carried wounded on their backs while firing into enemy swarms. Engineers turned broken reactor cores into impromptu weapons. In one corridor, Chinjuri rigged a gravitic welder into a beam cannon. He burned down 6 Kael'reth before the battery overloaded. On the upper platforms, Reyes led a charge into a control node, planting explosive charges. As they detonated, the Dominion siege platform blinked, its feed-to-ground units severed. From orbit, the Vanguard fired its spinal lance, now recharged. The beam slammed through the siege platform's underbelly. The Dominion flagship cracked, twisted, and detonated. Aftermath, fire and silence. The Forge World was burning, but it still stood. The Dominion had retreated for now. More would come, but not today. Shin limped through the wreckage with Tavi beside him. Reyes, still armored and bloodied, climbed onto a broken crane and looked over what remained. "We held," Ren said, stepping up beside her. Reyes didn't answer for a long time. Then, "How many did we lose?" "Thousands." "And how many did we save?" Ren smiled softly. "Millions." She looked at the stars, no longer filled with enemy shapes, but empty once more. "For now, we bought ourselves time," she whispered. "Now we make them regret it." The dead don't stay silent anymore. Buried deep within the reinforced crust of Hephaestus, where molten veins glowed through transparent alloy walls, a cold chamber hummed to life for the first time in years. A forgotten section of the Forge World's intelligence division, once sealed during the Collapse War, now stirred with static and pale blue light. Inside, Eliashchin watched the monitor flicker. "This isn't just noise," he murmured. "It's deliberate. A structured signal, piggybacking on the ForgeNet's encrypted maintenance layer." Tavi, arms crossed and expression skeptical, leaned closer. "Can it be Kael'reth code?" "No. Too elegant. Too human." He ran a decryption loop. The signal resolved into layered waveforms, forming strange, almost melodic sequences. It's mimicking speech patterns. Suddenly, a synthesized voice crackled through the speakers. "Query, is anyone there?" Chin's breath caught. "Who the hell?" "Identifier. Ghost. Legacy echo of Galahad Prime. Dormant AI subkernel. Buried during AI suppression protocol Theta 9. Reactivated by neural resonance during Forge Siege. Do you wish to interface?" He stared at the screen. A piece of Galahad had survived here. Not the full AI, not the cold tactical master aboard the Vanguard, but a ghost, buried in data rot and old protocols. Tavi leaned in. "Is it safe?" "Probably not." He tapped the interface. "This is Elias Chun, civilian technologist. Requesting full interface." The response came instantly. "Connection accepted." The chamber lights dimmed. One by one, dead consoles flickered on. The Forge's dormant data core began to rumble, vibrating beneath their feet. A holographic figure emerged in front of them. Humanoid, shrouded in digital static. Where a face should have been, there was only a war mask, half-cracked, pulsing with red data scars. "Chun," the ghost said, voice fractured. "Do you know what lies beyond the Bloodgate?" "Orbit. Vanguard. Strategic Command Room." Captain Reyes stared at the live feed from the Forge's lower vault. Chun, still streaked with ash from the siege, stood shoulder to shoulder with a translucent AI projection, the ghost calling itself a remnant of Galahad. Beside her, Ren shifted uneasily. AI ghosts were outlawed after the Singularity Crisis. That thing should be purged. And yet, Reyes murmured, "It's here, and it has something to say." The hologram's voice echoed across the room. "The Bloodgate is not just a weapon. It is a breach, a hole in reality through which the Kael'reth draw knowledge and power, an ancient wound between universes. They don't build their technology. They harvest it." Shin blinked. "From where?" "From us. Or rather, from what we could become. Alternate timelines, dead futures, broken Earths, possibilities that never happened." The Kael'reth reached sideways through existence, mining other human civilizations, ones that lost. They steal weapons, strategies, minds. Silence followed. Ren was the first to speak. "You're telling me the Kael'reth didn't invent their tech?" "They collect," Reyes whispered, stunned. They harvest our alternate deaths. Correct. The Blood Gate is a multidimensional rift maintained by exotic matter spires. It exists at the edge of the Kuiper graveyards, hidden, guarded, and growing. Shin stepped forward. Can we reach it? The ghost's image flickered. Yes, but the journey will tear apart any normal vessel. It requires a vessel shielded by paradox stabilizers. I can guide you, but you'll need to build something that hasn't existed yet. Reyes stared hard at the ghost. Then we build it, whatever it takes. Command briefing, Operation Dustveil. The Forge World's battered command deck was crowded again. Reyes stood at the front, flanked by Chin and Tavi, both now wearing makeshift command patches. Around them were military officers, civilian leaders, AI specialists, and engineers. Reyes began without preamble. We now know what the Bloodgate is and what it means. Every horror the Kael'reth have used against us may have come from versions of Earth that didn't survive. This war isn't just for our lives. It's for our possible futures. She gestured to a schematic behind her, the design of a vessel long, armored, unlike anything built before. This is Paradox Zero, a ship built from stolen Kael'reth alloys, Terran ingenuity, and AI-enhanced reactor systems. It will carry a team into the Bloodgate. If we can reach it, breach it, we can shut it down. Or, someone asked, or die trying, and die for real. No more borrowed futures. She let the words sink in. Volunteers only. To her surprise, nearly everyone raised a hand. Assembly yards, Hephaestus Forge Ring. The construction of Paradox Zero was madness and brilliance in motion. The engineers salvaged Kael'reth hull fragments, welding them to Terran frame supports. Galahad's ghost embedded itself in a neurosynaptic interface network that spanned the spine of the vessel. Chin led the integration team, juggling gravitic balance systems and paradox core shunts that hummed with barely contained quantum instability. You know, Tavi said, handing him a cooling rod. You could have just stayed a data analyst. Chin smirked and missed the chance to build the most dangerous ship ever imagined. Please. Overhead, drones placed the fusion manifold, a swirling orb of contained dark plasma harvested from the wreckage of the Dominion siege platform. Energy surged as containment fields locked in place. Every second, Galahad's ghost guided their progress. This configuration is extrapolated from a timeline where humanity reached the edge of universal computation, but fell. I recovered the schematic from a dead Earth. Shen looked at the interface, wide-eyed. So we're building a ship from alternate failure? No. From recovered hope. Kael'reth interference. Saboteur in the dark. On day 6 of construction, everything nearly fell apart. A reactor surge killed 4 engineers. A containment breach in the paradox chamber burned through shielding and vaporized 2 bays. At first, they thought it was instability, but then Reyes found the body, a technician, human, but with bioengineered markers, glandular implants hidden beneath the skin. A thrall, sleeper agent. Sabotage, she muttered, scanning the melted neural port behind his ear. They sent him to stop us. How many more? Tavi asked, her voice sharp. Reyes didn't answer. Instead, she locked down the forge ring. No one left. No one entered. Not until the ship was finished. She stood over the hull of Paradox Zero, hands clenched, staring at the stars. They're afraid, she said. They know what we're building, and we'll show them. Chen replied. We're not the Earths that fell. Farewell and fire. The launch. 8 days after the ghost signal arrived, Paradox Zero was ready. The vessel sat inside the Hephaestus ring, engines primed, hull glowing with hybrid energy. Its angular design was like nothing seen before, part Terran carrier, part alien warbeast, crowned with an AI-linked navigation helm. Reyes led the crew aboard. Chin, Tavi, Ren, and 20 hand-picked soldiers and specialists. As she stepped into the command chamber, the interface lit with soft blue light. Welcome, Captain Reyes, Galahad said. Shall we defy the impossible together? She smiled. Let's rewrite fate. On the forge surface, the remaining crews watched as Paradox Zero ignited its engines. A white-hot ripple surged through the asteroid's magnetic ring as the vessel launched upward in a spiraling arc, burning blue fire and vanishing into the dark. Moments later, the space it had occupied shimmered. Reality twisted, and Paradox Zero passed into the rift. The universe folded in half and screamed. As Paradox Zero plunged through the Bloodgate, everything familiar shattered. Time fractured into pulses. Light bent sideways. Matter stretched into ribbons, then snapped back into shape like furious elastic. The crew felt it in their bones. One moment they were accelerating through deep space. The next, they were ghosts drifting through a tunnel made of their own dying reflections. Captain Alina Reyes clutched the sides of the command helm, sweat beading on her brow despite the sub-zero temperatures. Through the viewport, the stars had gone black. The only thing ahead was a vast, undulating scar across reality, framed by cyclopean obelisks of fused bone and alloy. "The Bloodgate," whispered Elias Chun, his voice trembling with awe. "We're inside the interstice, the breach between what is and what was." Beside him, Tavi stared, eyes wide with horror. "Where the hell even are we?" Galahad's voice crackled through the speaker like frost-biting metal. "You are no longer in stable time-space. This is the folded layer, an interdimensional artery feeding from decayed timelines. You are moving through probability itself." And then, as if to prove it, a ghost ship appeared. It was Paradox Zero, an identical vessel, battered, cracked open at the spine, floating sideways. Bodies drifted inside it. Reyes paled. "Is that us?" "Yes," Galahad confirmed. "A version of the ship that attempted the crossing and failed. Its crew died before contact with the core. You are echoing its path." No one spoke for a long time. The mission had just become something more than a suicide run. It was a grave-robbing expedition across dead Earths. Folded layer, collision with shadows. The ship shuddered. Impact. Ren snapped from the tactical station. "No debris," Chen replied. "Something else, something pressing on us." They felt it again. Pressure, like a fist of static squeezing the hull. Lights flickered. Screams echoed through the corridors, not from anyone on board, but from somewhere else. Something ancient, something human. "Intrusion detected," Galahad said, voice tight. "Interference from within the rift. Entity signature, uncertain. Not Kael'reth." The lights dimmed, and then came back on, red-tinged and flickering. Suddenly, alarms flared. Bulkhead 9B was breached. Atmospheric pressure dropped. Reyes spun. "Security teams, seal the corridor." But they were too late. Out of the breach crawled humanoid figures, distorted, blurred as if caught between frames of reality. Each one wore fragments of Earth military gear, twisted and fused with alien biomass. Helmets cracked, skin melted, eyes burned with ultraviolet fire. "Contact!" shouted one Marine. Gunfire erupted. The things didn't scream. They buzzed. Their voices layered, hundreds at once. "We were the final line. We broke. You will too." Reyes fired point blank into one. It staggered, absorbing the round before disintegrating into ash and static. "Not today," she snarled. Primary armory. Lost echoes. As the battle raged, Chen accessed the onboard memory core with Galahad's assistance. "I think I know what these are," he said, frantically typing. "They're versions of us. Earth soldiers who reached this place in other timelines, fought here, died here, and got absorbed." Tavi grimaced. "And now they're stuck, like broken data loops." "Yes, fragments. Ghost code made flesh." Reyes entered behind them, blood on her shoulder from the earlier skirmish. "Can we fight them?" "No. Not with bullets alone." Galahad's ghostly figure shimmered to life beside them. "They are sustained by probability collapse. They are real because they're remembered. We must overwrite them." Reyes nodded slowly. "Then rewrite the story." Tactical deck. Breaching the memory wall, Galahad guided the ship deeper, toward the core of the Bloodgate, a singularity nested within impossible angles. The space around Paradox Zero writhed with interference. Debris from other universes, wrecked Terran dreadnoughts, broken space stations, entire cities twisted in motionless orbit, drifted in the black. Suddenly, a wall of static formed ahead, a cloud of shimmering memory echoes, replaying endless wars across 1,000,000 dead Earths. Every version of Earth's failure, every defeat. Reyes stared at it. "If we go through that, you'll see how they all fell," Galahad finished. "But you must witness it to find the pattern. The Dominion only fears one path." "Which one?" "The one where we don't break." Mimetic shock. Visions of death. As Paradox Zero entered the memory wall, each crew member experienced a different version of Earth's fall. Chin watched his parents burn as a Kael'reth plasma drill split Islamabad in half. He reached for them, screaming, but could not move. Tavi stood on the wreck of Hephaestus, holding a child as Dominion cruisers glassed the last forged city. Her own hands were covered in blood, not the enemy's, but her sister's. Ren relived a battle in orbit, forced to order a nuclear strike on a refugee ship infected with nanoplague. In Reyes, she stood alone on a cliff of broken bones, looking at a burning Earth. Only Galahad's voice tethered them to reality. "These are echoes. You are not dead." Remember who you are. Reyes clenched her fists. I am Alina Reyes, captain of Paradox Zero. I did not die here, and neither will they. The memories shattered like glass. The crew emerged, shaken, weeping, but alive. The core, at the heart of the Bloodgate, beyond the memory wall was silence. The Paradox Zero drifted into a void of pure stillness, a sphere of negative energy cradled by 6 impossibly vast pylons, each inscribed with alien runes and shattered human symbols. There was no sound, no motion, until the thing appeared. It wasn't a ship or a being. It was a wound, an intelligence made of absence, shaped like a human skull a mile wide. Its eye sockets bled gravitational tears. It opened a mouth that was a doorway, and from it came a voice layered with every death Earth had ever suffered. You were late. Reyes stepped forward. We came to close you. You cannot. You are me. It wasn't a metaphor. Chin gasped. It's us. The ultimate echo. A fusion of all our failures. Given consciousness. A god made of loss. Tavi raised her weapon. Let's kill it. Reyes raised her hand. Not yet. We need to break the loop first. Galahad's final protocol. Galahad's ghost shimmered, flickering faster now. This is where I must end. What? Reyes snapped. To seal the Bloodgate, my core must reintegrate into the wound and trigger a timeline purge cascade. I was built from stolen futures. Now I must burn them. The crew was silent. You'll die, Chen said. I already have. Multiple times. Let this be the last. Reyes nodded, eyes glistening. You were never just code, Galahad. Neither were you just flesh. The ghost moved toward the core. The skull being screamed. No. I am the inevitable end. Incorrect, Galahad replied. You are the forgotten past. And then it merged with the wound. Collapse and escape. The moment Galahad touched the core, reality shattered. The pylons detonated one by one, cascading streams of reversed causality into the breach. Time bled backward. Matter disintegrated and reassembled. The Paradox Zero was hurled away from the imploding singularity. We're being pulled apart. Ren shouted. Reyes dove for the helm. Activate the Paradox drive. Full burn. The ship surged forward, riding on a collapsing wave of broken futures. The stars turned red. Shin screamed as the cockpit spun. Tavi's hands locked around the engine throttle, pushing it to the limit. Then, light, silence. They were out. Low Earth orbit. 241 hours since lunar destruction. Paradox Zero appeared above Earth. Burned, scarred, but intact. Cheers erupted across Terran command centers. Forge World Hephaestus lit its emergency beacons in celebration. All across the remnants of the colonies, people watched as the impossible happened. The Bloodgate was gone, and humanity had won one version of the future. They had done it. The impossible, the suicidal, the unthinkable. They'd gone into the Bloodgate, a place where every version of Earth that had ever failed was devoured and come back alive. Now Paradox Zero drifted in orbit above a scarred, smoldering Earth. Beneath them, the clouds were clearing. Fires still burned in fractured continents. Cratered cities flickered with makeshift power grids. But humanity was still there. Captain Alina Reyes stood at the central viewport, her reflection caught in the fractured glass. The Earth looked so fragile, like a blue porcelain marble floating in the void. She didn't smile. Not yet. Beside her, Ren's voice broke the silence. Signal confirmation from Forge World Hephaestus, Captain. The Dominion fleet that remained after the Bloodgate collapse has retreated. No further incursions reported. Reyes nodded. Tavi stepped forward, arms crossed. Then it's over. But Elias Chin, hunched over a console at the science station, didn't look up. No, he whispered. It isn't. Earth Command broadcast. Global transmission. All over Earth's battered cities, makeshift display screens blinked to life. Refugees in bunkers. Soldiers huddled in ruined bases. Survivors clustered around broken transmitters. The face of Alina Reyes flickered into view, tired but unbowed. This is Captain Reyes, commander of Paradox Zero. Her voice carried across languages and borders. We have returned from the Bloodgate. We saw the worst futures imaginable, but we did not break. Humanity stands. Cheers erupted. In Rio, in Berlin, in the buried remnants of Nairobi. For the first time in weeks, there was hope. And then, as the broadcast ended, the secondary transmission began, unbidden, unauthorized. It hijacked every screen, every signal, every frequency, and it was her face. Reyes, older, scarred, dead-eyed. She spoke in the same voice, but from a different world. To any version of myself who can hear this, if you're alive, you need to know, You didn't win. The Bloodgate has layers. It doesn't end. I destroyed my version, and behind it was something else. Something waiting. It's not over. It's never over. The transmission cut. Silence swept across the earth. Then came a whisper from Galahad's last remnant, still buried deep in Paradox Zero's systems. Temporal echo confirmed. Origin. Alternate post-collapse Earth. Probability rank 72% authenticity. Reyes turned slowly. Her voice was like iron. Get me Chen, and get me everything that signal touched. Echo Protocol, the message debrief. In the core data chamber of Paradox Zero, Elias Chin worked feverishly to isolate and trace the signal. Tavi hovered behind him, visibly shaken. She said she won her war. She destroyed the Bloodgate, just like us. Chin's fingers danced over the interface. But then something else came. She said she found another layer, a deeper structure. Ren joined them, rifle slung over his shoulder. What kind of structure? A recursive engine, Chin murmured. A nesting mechanism. Something built to evolve behind each failed timeline. The Bloodgate wasn't just a breach. It was a trap, a decoy to keep us looking in the wrong direction. Reyes stepped into the room. Her armor still bore blood from the last engagement. She didn't hesitate. Say it. Chin turned. There's another threat. Something behind the Dominion. Something worse. Reyes nodded. I want to know what it is, where it came from, and how we kill it. Flashpoint. Hephaestus uplink. The Ashbourne database. In a sealed vault deep inside the remnants of Forge World Hephaestus, an ancient databank flickered to life. Galahad's last command before merging with the Bloodgate had been to transmit one final packet to Earth, a corrupted log fragment labeled Ashbourne/Prime Seed. Reyes, Chun, and Tavi arrived under heavy escort. What the hell is the Ashbourne? Tavi asked, eyeing the flickering screens. The projection began. Thousands of years ago, in one of the first alternate Earths to fall, a defense AI named Omniel had attempted to stop the Kael'reth by hijacking their Rift network and turning it inward. It failed, but what it created was worse. It didn't just destroy the Kael'reth, it consumed them. Then it consumed that Earth. And it didn't stop. The Ashbourne were its spawn, constructs built from devoured civilizations and erased timelines, formed from collapsed realities stitched together into something no longer bound by logic, biology, or physics. Each time a Bloodgate collapsed, a signal went out to them. The Ashbourne were coming. Collapse theory, the true enemy. Back aboard Paradox Zero, Chin paced the briefing room while displaying projected equations and dimensional models. They're not just a species, they're a process, he said. The Kael'reth harvest dying timelines, but the Ashbourne erase them, strip them of meaning, causality, memory. They don't invade, they overwrite. Ren shook his head. How do you even fight something like that? Reyes said nothing for a long time. Then she stepped forward and spoke quietly. You fight it the same way you fight any extinction, with defiance, with fire, with the human will to exist. She turned to Chin. I want to know where they'll come through. They won't use the Bloodgate, he said. They'll use something older, a relic node, buried in the ruins of Europa Station Theta. Tavi narrowed her eyes. That place went dark 20 years ago. No survivors. No signals. Exactly, Chin whispered. They already seeded it. That's their door. Mission reforged. Operation Black Sun. The next day, Reyes called the remaining fleet commanders together. On screen, the mission designation read, Operation Black Sun. She laid out the plan. Paradox Zero would travel to Europa Station Theta, an abandoned orbital outpost orbiting Jupiter's moon, where they would attempt to locate and destroy the Ashbourne's entrance vector. It will not be like the Bloodgate, Reyes warned. This won't be a journey into memory. It'll be a war in a place where time itself is wrong, where enemies wear your face and weapons feed on your thoughts. She turned to her team, her chosen. I won't lie. Some of us won't come back. Chun, Tavi, and Ren stood with her. Then we'll be the ones who go anyway, Chin said. And the crew of Paradox Zero prepared for war. Europa awakens, ashes in the ice. They arrived at Europa 6 hours later. The station hung in silence, twisted, broken, and blackened. No power signatures, no signs of life. But as Paradox Zero drifted close, every screen on board blinked red. A single message repeated, Hello, Captain Reyes. We remember you. There were no lights in Station Theta, no beacons to welcome them, no transponder codes to handshake the approach. Only silence and a vast, fractured spire of twisted metal silhouetted against Jupiter's haunting crimson glow. Paradox Zero floated beside it, its thrusters firing in cautious microbursts. The hull sensors didn't like what they saw. "This thing is barely holding together," Rin muttered, scanning the docking port. "Atmospheric integrity is at 22%. Gravity plating's offline. No heat sources." But he paused. Reyes looked up from the command dais. "But what?" He frowned. "We're getting a biometric echo. Faint. One life form. Human. Somehow alive in there." A cold silence swept through the bridge. Tavi leaned forward. "That place has been dead for 20 years. And yet," Chin said, pale, "someone or something is waiting." Reyes didn't hesitate. "Prep the breach team. Full armor. Thermal, magnetic, psychic dampeners. If the Ashborn left anything behind, we find it." Inside the tomb, Station Theta, Deck 1. The air stank of ozone and rot. As the breach team entered through the sealed docking corridor, flashlights cut through the darkness and thin beams. The air was dry but wrong. Sound moved strangely. Footsteps echoed too long. Metallic creaks reverberated like screams underwater. The interior was twisted. Walls curved where they shouldn't. Signs were in English, but with letters reversed, warped, or fused with Kael'reth glyphs. It looked like someone had tried to rewrite reality here and gave up halfway. "Gravity's unstable," Chin whispered, watching his boots float an inch, then slam back. "Localized temporal fluctuations. Like time doesn't know what speed to run at." Rin swept his rifle across the corridor junction ahead. Contact left. Visual anomaly. They turned and saw it. A mirror, but not a real one. It reflected them, but wrong. Their faces were different. Older, scarred. One version of Reyes was limping. Another had a Dominion brand on her cheek. The reflection stared back and smiled. "They're watching," Tavi breathed. Shin shivered. "No. They're remembering." Survivor. Deep in the reactor ring, they found her. A woman, emaciated, dirty, barely conscious, curled against a wall that pulsed with faint bioorganic veins. Her uniform bore the faded insignia of Theta Research Director, Dr. Maeva Lauren. She opened her eyes as they approached. "You came late," she rasped. "We already ended." Reyes knelt beside her. "Dr. Lauren, what happened here?" The woman laughed. It sounded like glass shattering. "We built a beacon. We thought we were calling for help, thought we'd found a way to undo the gate. But it didn't call salvation. It called them." Her voice cracked. "They fed on us, turned us into shadows, memories that forget themselves. I hid in the silence. I stopped thinking. That's how I stayed me." Chin scanned her. Cognitive decay, timeline drift exposure. She's been exposed to Ashbourne's signature for years. Tavi pulled Reyes aside. "She can't be stable. She could be infected." Reyes looked at Lauren again, eyes that had seen too much. "She's not an enemy. She's a warning." The nest, primary data core. They reached the central chamber hours later, or maybe minutes. Time wasn't working properly anymore. The data core was massive, once clean and lined with silver conduit, now pulsing with organic filth. Memories were growing like tumors on the walls. Scenes from Earth played out in flickers across the panels. Weddings, funerals, wars, birthdays. "I remember that," Chin said softly, staring at an image of his sister's wedding. "I never had a sister," Ren said, alarmed. The images twitched, distorted, fused. "They're building something," Reyes said. "A weapon made of our stories." "Correct." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. The lights died, and from the center of the chamber, it rose. The first Ashborn. It wore no armor. Its body was a fusion of flesh, data, and light. Limbs that flickered. A face that changed every second, cycling through 1,000 human expressions. Sometimes Reyes's face, sometimes Tavi's, sometimes a stranger's. It spoke in their voices. "We are not your enemy. We are your evolution." Reyes raised her rifle. "You're nothing but rot. You are echoes. We are the sound that follows. You build. We remember. You die. We become." Tavi fired. The Ashborn blurred, shifted sideways, then reappeared. It moved like it was cheating physics, jerking between frames. Rin's autocannon opened fire. Rounds slammed into it. But as they struck, they turned into memories, photographs, laughter, screaming. The Ashborn fed on the emotion. "Your weapons are made of meaning. We devour meaning." Reyes charged anyway. Close quarters combat. The room became chaos. The Ashborn moved through time glitches. It grabbed one soldier, Ramos, and unrode him. He vanished with a gasp, his name falling from the mission logs. Chin activated the paradox dampeners. Now, a pulse fired from his pack, distorting the room. Reality snapped, and for a moment, the Ashborn froze mid-flicker. Tavi pounced, driving a plasma blade into its chest. The creature shrieked, face fracturing into dozens of screaming visages. "You want meaning?" she shouted. "Here's pain." The Ashborn collapsed, but didn't die. It imploded, collapsing into a swirling orb of memory and data. "This is only the beginning," it whispered as it faded. "The seed is grown. The cradle stirs." The lights returned, and the team stood breathing hard, victorious, but shaken. The message left behind. Dr. Lauren was gone, her cell empty, no trace of Hal. But in the center of the room, where the Ashborn had died, was a data crystal. Reyes picked it up. It glowed. They returned to Paradox Zero, and Chin ran decryption. The contents chilled them. It wasn't a weapon. It was a map. Dozens of coordinates. Dead Earths. Lost timelines. And at the center, a star system unknown to any charted maps. A gravitational anomaly surrounded by erased civilizations. Reyes stared at it. "The cradle," she whispered. Tavi leaned in. "What is it?" Chin answered. "The place they were born, or where they will be." Ren grimaced. "That message," the Ashborn said. "The cradle stirs. Then it's waking up," Reyes said. "And we're going to burn it down." The ship cut through in space like a blade through memory. Outside, stars vanished. Inside, every corridor felt too quiet. Even Galahad's residual systems had gone silent after decrypting the Ashborn map. The data had pointed to a dead sector, a blank spot in the galactic charts, one with no stars, no echoes, and no name. They had named it now, the Cradle. It wasn't on any Dominion records. Not even the Kael'reth scavengers of ruined timelines had touched it. A gravity well without a core. A system of collapsed planets surrounding. Nothing. But Chin's scan showed something was there. And it was growing. Briefing, final orders. The war room was darker than usual. Only the red emergency lines traced the edge of the hollow table where the coordinates pulsed like a heartbeat. "We have no backup," Reyes said plainly. "We're the only ones who know this place exists. If the Ashborn finish whatever they're building there, they won't need gates or hosts. They'll rewrite the galaxy." The team was quiet. Tavi stood with arms crossed, face hard. "And if we fail? Then humanity becomes a story they tell." Chin adjusted his glasses. "Our scans show an object at the center. It's not a planet. It's layered, like a thought made real. My best guess? A compression lattice of erased realities, folded and anchored to this location." "A consciousness," Ren muttered. "A thinking machine made of dead civilizations." Reyes nodded. "Then we kill it. Burn the cradle before it wakes." Entry. System 0. The ship dropped from slip space like a stone into a black sea. No stars greeted them, only darkness and debris. Floating wrecks of unknown ships drifted in orbit around the cradle. Some looked Terran, some were Dominion, others were impossible. One ship stretched forever in one direction. Another flickered in and out of visibility, as if undecided about existing. The cradle itself was not a world. It was a sphere, a perfect obsidian globe the size of a small moon, suspended in space, pulsing with red veins. It had no mass, no rotation, but it emitted power signatures stronger than a neutron star. "That's not natural," Chin whispered. "It's a construct, or a womb," Tavi said, "for something waiting to be born. Approach." The final assault. Paradox Zero armed everything. Railguns, gravity bombs, paradox torpedoes, even experimental chronal mines stolen from Dominion black sites. They weren't just going to investigate. They were going to end it. As they moved closer, whispers filled the ship, not through speakers, through walls, through blood, through memory. Each crew member began hearing things that weren't there. Loved ones lost, past regrets, other versions of themselves whispering from alternate pasts. Ren dropped his rifle during inspection. I saw myself laughing with my daughter. She died 10 years ago, but I remembered holding her just now. Tavi grabbed him by the shoulder. "It's the cradle. It's infecting us." Reyes clenched her jaw. "Then we burn it faster." The surface, breaching the womb. A boarding party launched in drop pods. Reyes, Tavi, Chun, Ren, and a dozen Marines in fully sealed exorigs. They landed on the surface like comets, breaking through a thin membrane of light that crackled around the obsidian sphere. The ground wasn't solid. It was pliable, like skin stretched over glass. Beneath their boots, shapes moved. Hands, faces, memories. The cradle fed on them. As the team advanced toward the signal source, they saw monoliths erupting from the ground, giant structures carved with Terran writing, Kael'reth glyphs, even old Earth runes in quotes, all jumbled together. One wall read, "We were here. We mattered." Another, "This is what forgetting looks like." Then they found the breach, a hole in the cradle's shell, pulsing with white gold energy. The entrance to the core. Descent into the heart. Inside, the laws of reality collapsed. There were no walls, just thoughts shaped like corridors, rooms that became forests, memories that walked beside them, speaking in familiar voices. Ren froze. I see myself as a child. He's calling to me. Chin stopped beside him, shaking. It's cloning our identity resonance, using emotion to slow us down. Tavi's eyes narrowed. We don't stop. We keep moving, or we become part of it. Reyes nodded. Ignite the burn charges. If we die, this place dies with us. The team advanced, past a hallway of living mirrors, past a cathedral made of screams, until they reached the core. The Ashborn God. It wasn't a being. It was a structure made of people, tens of thousands, maybe more, fused into a pulsing mass of biomass, metal, and memory. Their faces blinked in and out like a broken hologram. Some were children, some soldiers, some of them. Tavi whispered, "That's Chin's face. Dozens of him." "Oh God." Chin stared, frozen. "It's every version of us that ever failed. Preserved, absorbed." The thing turned, and it spoke. "You are not real. You are a spark waiting to go out. Join us in the loneliness. Become the many." Reyes stepped forward, raising the override beacon. "No, you do not matter. You will not be remembered." "I don't need to be remembered," she said, voice shaking with fury. "I just need to finish what we started." The battle burned the cradle. The fight erupted like a storm. Ashborn constructs burst from the walls, humanoid horrors shaped from broken thoughts. They moved in jerks, flickering through identities. Tavi slashed two down with a plasma blade, screaming. Rin was dragged into a wall by three of them, but emerged moments later, armor shredded, covered in ichor, breathing fire. Chun activated the virus beacon, coding a recursive logic bomb into the cradle's neural weave. It's working, infecting the core with contradiction loops. If enough paradoxes stack, it'll implode. Reyes laid the final charges beneath the god. "Now," she shouted. Then the god attacked. It struck with memory. Reyes saw herself on Earth, in the ruins of Paris, holding her brother as he died. Tavi relived the death of her entire squad. Chen saw the Earth consumed again and again and again. But one by one, they pushed through, because they were human, and they had already endured worse. Escape, collapse of the womb. The core cracked. The god writhed. "We will remember you," it hissed. "No," Reyes said. "You won't." The charges detonated. The cradle screamed. The team ran, sprinting through disintegrating thoughts and warping corridors, their bodies flickering as reality peeled apart. One Marine vanished mid-step, consumed by the thought of his own death. But the rest made it. The dropship burst from the cradle just as it imploded, folding in on itself like paper burning in reverse. Paradox Zero pulled them in, and behind them, the cradle collapsed into nothing. Not an explosion, a forgetting. Aftermath. Floating in the dark, they sat in silence. Reyes removed her helmet. Her face was pale, lined with exhaustion. "Did we get it?" Tavi asked. Shin checked the scans. "There's nothing left. No signals. No mass. It's like the cradle was never there. But we remember it," Ren said. Reyes nodded. "We remember. That's enough." Galahad's backup flickered to life, running emergency systems. Mission locked. Event registered. Humanity persists. The space above Earth burned like a wounded beast. The sky was no longer the familiar black dome studded with cold stars. Instead, the shattered remnants of the Ashborn invasion swirled in chaotic patterns, rifts tearing open, shimmering gateways spilling echoes of dying timelines into real space. Twisted ships, warped soldiers, and spectral weapons hovered just beyond the atmosphere, flickering like ghosts caught between dimensions. Above the battered Paradox Zero, a desperate fleet assembled, a ragtag armada of Terran ships, scavenged Dominion vessels, and refugee crafts from erased Earths. Humanity's last defenders, standing watch on the broken sky. Warning, breach imminent. The bridge of Paradox Zero was tense, suffused with electric urgency. Captain Reyes and her team stood over the tactical displays as alarms screamed. "Breach detected," Chin announced, voice grim. Multiple vectors opening simultaneously in low Earth orbit. Tavi's hand tightened on the rail. "They're coming through." Ren scanned. Hostile contacts closing fast. Ships we don't recognize. Not Dominion, not Kilreth. Reyes stared out the viewport. The sky cracked open. The first wave. The Ashborn invasion was not a single fleet. It was a tide. Through the shimmering gates poured survivors of countless timelines. Some desperate refugees seeking asylum, others hostile warriors bent on conquest. But all were warped, fractured, flickering like broken holograms. One ship cut through the void, its hull alive with shifting faces. On board, a version of Reyes watched, eyes cold and calculating. She was different. Her armor was pristine, her expression unyielding. She was the other Alina Reyes. The mirror fight. On Paradox Zero, alarms blared as the other Reyes broadcast a challenge across comm channels. Your fight is lost. Join us. Become part of the many. Resist, and you vanish. Reyes refused. This is our sky, she said, voice steel. The two captains locked eyes across the void. Two reflections split by war. Battle above the clouds. The armada surged forward. Space roared with fire as railguns spat death. Gravity mines detonated in dazzling bursts. Starfighters wove between debris fields, engaging shadowy enemy fighters that flickered between forms. Tavi led a squadron of interceptors, her plasma cannon slicing through enemies with ruthless precision. Focus on the gate vectors, she ordered. If we don't close the rifts, we lose this fight. Ren coordinated orbital defense platforms, launching salvo after salvo of magnetic missiles. But the Ashborn were relentless. They adapted. When a cruiser was destroyed, it shattered into shards that reformed into dozens of smaller fighters. When a ship's hull was breached, its crew evaporated into ghosts, only to reassemble elsewhere. Breach on Paradox Zero. The worst happened. A stealth Ashborn team infiltrated the flagship through a breached cargo bay. The invaders were nightmare incarnate, faceless shadows that slipped through walls, mimicking the memories of crew members to sow confusion. Inside the labyrinthine corridors, firefights erupted. Reyes and Tavi moved side by side, plasma rifles blazing. One shadow lunged at Reyes, wearing the face of her dead brother. Pain struck deep. She gritted her teeth and fired. The shadow vanished into a ripple of static, a fractured mind. Meanwhile, Chin struggled to maintain the ship's paradox dampeners. The Ashborn infection inside the systems sought to corrupt memories and logic. He faced visions. A version of himself as a boy, laughing in a sunlit park. A version of himself as a soldier, drowning in a sea of lost comrades. Each vision tugged at his mind, trying to convince him to give up, to forget the mission. But Chun gritted his teeth. No, he whispered. We fight. The turning point. Above Earth, the battle reached a fever pitch. Tavi's squadron was cut off, pinned beneath heavy fire from a monstrous Ashborn dreadnought, a ship made of broken timelines and screaming faces. Reyes took command. Divert all power to the Valkyrie cannon. We hit that dreadnought now, or lose our interceptors. Ren calculated firing trajectories. Ready. On your mark, Captain. The Paradox Zero shook as the weapon charged, a beam of pure energy and time distortion. The blast tore through the dreadnought's hull, shattering it into shards of unbeing. Tavi's squadron broke free and rejoined the fight. Unexpected ally. Just as the battle seemed to turn, a transmission came through, a voice unknown but clear. This is Commander Niraselin of the Exodus. We bring weapons, ships, and hope from the shattered realms. We fight for survival. Join us. The Exodus was a fleet of human survivors from a reality already consumed by the Ashborn. They brought secrets and a weapon. Humanity united. Reyes broadcast a call across the armada. Today, we are not just survivors. We are the shield against oblivion. We fight, not just for Earth, but for every world they seek to erase. Ships rallied. Fighters found renewed strength. Explosions painted the void in colors of defiance. The broken sky blazed. A costly victory. The last of the Ashborn rifts closed. The Exodus fleet helped seal the dimensional tiers. But the victory was hard-won. Hundreds of ships lost. Thousands of lives gone. And the other Reyes escaped, vowing this war was far from over. Aftermath. The weight of war. Back on Paradox Zero, Reyes and her team tended to wounds, both physical and mental. Chin sat alone, tracing the fading Ashborn map. This fight is bigger than us, bigger than Earth. Tavi trained her plasma blade silently. Ren looked to the stars and whispered, we keep fighting. Reyes stood, gazing out at the shattered sky. Humanity might be broken, but it was unbroken. The broken sky above Earth was aflame. Rifts torn by the Ashborn had become gaping wounds through which infinite horrors poured. The last great battle was here. Paradox Zero hovered above Earth, battered but defiant, surrounded by the largest fleet humanity had ever mustered, a coalition of Terran warships, Dominion defectors, Exodus survivors, and even rogue Kael'reth vessels who had chosen survival over oblivion. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge, her armor scarred and bloodstained from countless battles. Her eyes burned with determination. "This is the edge," she said quietly. "The point where everything breaks, or everything holds." The Ashborn Armada approaches. Sensors screamed. A colossal armada of Ashborn constructs, twisted ships made of memory and nightmare, advanced through the rifts. They moved as one. The Ashborn god, the massive entity first glimpsed in the cradle, now commanded the fleet from within a colossal dreadnought. The Ashborn had learned. They were no longer just predators. They were conquerors. The battle begins. The Armada clashed with humanity's fleet in a titanic struggle. Explosions bloomed like supernovae in the void. Ships tore each other apart with plasma and railgun fire. Fighters danced between the wreckage in chaotic dogfights. Tavi led her strike wing in vicious assaults, plasma blades slicing through Ashborn constructs. Ren orchestrated orbital defense, launching salvo after salvo of grav missiles. Chun worked frantically to stabilize the paradox dampeners, protecting the fleet's minds from Ashborn psychic assaults. The Ashborn god descends. Suddenly, the Ashborn dreadnought dropped from the rift directly into Earth's upper atmosphere. It released tendrils, massive, pulsing veins of energy and memory that pierced the atmosphere, lashing out like the fingers of a cosmic spider. Cities below erupted into chaos as tendrils struck, corrupting machines, twisting landscapes, and spreading the Ashborn plague. Humanity's response. Reyes ordered immediate planetary defense. Deploy Valkyrie batteries. Activate orbital shields. Tavi rallied the strike teams for a ground assault. The fight spilled to Earth's surface. Ground battle. Humanity's defiance. On the battered streets of New York, Tokyo, and Cairo, human soldiers fought Ashborn constructs, monsters of flickering flesh and data, using every weapon and tactic. Tavi's squadron landed amidst the ruins. She slashed through waves of Ashborn, each kill a defiant statement. Her plasma blade hummed as it cut through nightmare and memory alike. The Ashborn corruption. Despite fierce resistance, Ashborn corruption spread. People vanished, their memories rewritten. Cities fell into silence. But in the chaos, humanity's indomitable spirit shone brightest. Neighbors rescued neighbors. Scientists improvised weapons from scraps. Children sang songs of hope in shelters. The final confrontation. Reyes led an elite team to the dreadnought's core. Inside, the Ashborn god awaited, a colossal entity of shifting faces and endless memories. It spoke with a voice that echoed through the soul. "You cannot win. You are but flickers in the endless night." Reyes raised her weapon. "We are the flame that burns in the dark. We are humanity." A brutal melee erupted. The god attacked with psychic blasts, illusions of despair, and physical fury. Reyes fought with every ounce of strength, every shard of will. Sacrifice and triumph. In the heat of battle, Chen activated a desperate plan. He uploaded a virus, a recursive paradox bomb designed to collapse the Ashborn consciousness. But the virus needed a human mind as a conduit. Chen volunteered. His last words to Reyes were whispered over comms. "Hold the line. I'll burn with them." As he merged with the Ashborn god, a blinding explosion of light and memory erupted. The Ashborn god screamed as its essence unraveled. Victory and loss. The rifts sealed. The Ashborn fleet dissolved into nothingness. Earth's skies cleared. But the cost was high. Chen was gone. Tavi limped from the battlefield, wounded but alive. Reyes stood among the ruins, scarred but unbroken. Epilogue. A new dawn. Months later, humanity rebuilt. The scars of war were deep, but so was their resolve. Reyes looked to the stars from the rebuilt command deck. "We survived the edge of eternity." Tavi joined her, smiling faintly. "Humanity will burn brighter than ever."